How's it going, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're looking at the Gorge, where two highly trained operatives become close after being sent to protect opposite sides of a mysterious gorge. When an evil emerges, they must work together to survive what lies within. Apple TV originals are a strange beast, as they are very hit or miss. In general, their shows are quite good, like Severance, but the original movies, on the other hand, typically aren't the best. I'm not sure why this is exactly, but the Gorge definitely falls into that same category. It definitely suffers from an identity crisis, venturing into a wide variety of genres quite jarringly. I guess you would call it romance, sci-fi, horror, action? And if we divide things up pie-wise, strangely the biggest slice is the love story. It pretty much dominates the first hour and then shifts gears into something else entirely. The second half is much more exciting, and director Scott Derrickson shows off some excellent visuals as well as action chops, but it still just doesn't fit together. And then when it comes to the big mystery, what the heck is in the Gorge anyway? The answers we get are like letting the air out of a balloon. I'm all, that was it? Okay then. So let's check out the Gorge, breaking down its many mysteries, including the secret of what is in the Gorge, as well as explaining the ending. We are given introductions to our pair of well-trained assassins. First is Drassa, tucked in a hole where she waits for over a week for her target. As soon as they step off the plane, she nails the shot. While Drassa is still actively working, it looks like Levi has been overwhelmed by all the blood on his hands over the years. Unable to sleep, he spends the rest of the night on the beach scribbling away on some poetry. He's then given a new purpose when he's called in to take a mysterious new mission. He meets the overtly shady Bartholomew, and she asks him some very pointed questions. Yes, he does have a ton of kills under his belt, but he also doesn't have anyone in his life that would miss him, really making it seem like that's the actual reason he was selected. He grumbles that his life doesn't have a lot of reasons right now, and she's like, yeah, you're perfect, loser. Meanwhile, in Lithuania, Drassa visits her terminally ill papa, playing the accordion for her deceased mother. He knows all about her unsavory work, and they have an odd setup where he asks to take her shame for her. She hands over the spent bullet casings, and they share a hug. She broaches how his health is, and there's nothing to be done. The cancer is eating him alive from the inside. Drassa's mission will take her away for a year, and he intends to end things on his own terms on Valentine's Day. He tells her to light a candle and look to the wolf constellation to be with him in a way. Levi wakes up on a chopper attached to an IV. He's asked to confirm his ID with a biometric scan and told to hand over his belongings. No phones here. He tries to ask some questions about the location and mission, but the lady stays tight-lipped. He parachutes out and then has to make the rest of his way on foot. After some serious traversing, he arrives at the titular Gorge, with long walls constructed on each side and a looming haze lingering down at the bottom, obscuring it completely. What is down there? He meets the guy he's replacing, JD, who fills him in on everything that he knows, all thanks to his predecessor. The work is pretty basic overall, just maintain the satellites, auto guns, and mines all around the perimeter. There is a sister tower on the east side of the Gorge, and they are strictly forbidden to ever contact them. They do their thing, and you do yours. That's simple. JD informs him there are several cloakers here as well, designed to keep the Gorge hidden from sight. He also tells him that in case of emergency, there's a panic button that lets them know. Them who? Levi asks, but he has no idea. All he knows is there's some kind of system protocol called Stray Dog. He doesn't know what that is either, but if he hears an air raid siren, run like hell. He does know a little bit more about the origin of the spot. Back at the end of the Second World War, groups from the East and West came together, and since then they have kept this place a complete secret, even from all the presidents and country leaders since then. Yeah, sure. Levi is confused. If this is a huge secret, then what the heck is his mission? To keep people from going into the Gorge? But no, it's the opposite. You gotta keep whatever is down there from getting out. He gives a clue as to whatever is down there, tossing something off the side. It lands hearing some groans from below. These things are known as the Hollow Men, a term coined from a T.S. Eliot poem. Someone named them years ago, and it has stuck ever since. At one point, they did try to destroy the Gorge and sent in 2,400 men on horseback back in the 40s, yet not a single soul returned. Since then, they switched to the containment strategy. Levi is curious, what does he think is down there? JD turns grave, feeling the Gorge is a door to hell, and we're standing guard at the gate. On that ominous note, JD takes his leave, his one-year term finally complete. He meets up with a chopper at a rendezvous point, getting airlifted away. Before getting on board, the guy screams to confirm his ID. JD does so, and the guy thanks him for his service and coldly shoots him before cutting the line. Thanks for your service indeed. And now we understand this is definitely some shady stuff going on here that most likely outcome for everyone after their term is to be put down to keep this a secret. October arrives, and Levi continues his quite mundane maintenance work around the area. He does his monthly radio check, all is good. He attempts to ask a further question and they promptly disconnect. No answers for you. Levi spots some stacks of books. Well, that'll kill some time. There's some writing behind the shelf and he moves it away. It reveals many quotes from various workers that were stationed here over the years, all the way back to the very first, a Captain Bradford Shaw from 1947. Most likely due to crippling boredom, Levi chances a glance over to the other tower. There he spots a girl outside and somehow she can feel that he's watching her. Not sure how that is exactly, he is quite far off. Later, Levi is startled awake by a thunderclap. He's quick to his feet, his gun at the ready in seconds. He can't help himself and is back to the binoculars, seeing her sitting at a table looking forlorn. Now it's November and it appears to be Dross's birthday, and it's her turn for curiosity to get the best of her as she scopes out Levi scribbling away. She decides to ignore the one thing that she was told not to do, don't talk to the other side, so she writes a note to Levi wanting to get to know him. He shuts her down at first, it's forbidden, but it doesn't really take much coaxing for him to cave. They share a celebratory toast to her birthday and become fast friends. She scavenges through the stuff in the cabin and puts on a 7-inch of the Ramones Blitzkrieg Bop. Seems like an odd choice to have at a military base like this. Did she bring her own records? Anyway, in a very goofy sequence, the song continues and they have a pissing contest showing off their shooting skills. The fun is interrupted when Drossa sees something down in the gorge. They then notice what looks like a person but fused with tree branches climbing their way out of the hole. They both let off some rounds and hit a mine, triggering an explosion. She gets on the sentry gun and picks off more guys as they appear. There's more still on the rise, and they get back to blowing them to pieces. At this point I was going, don't they have some kind of security barrier or something like that? This all seems very poorly executed. They actually do, but it's only now that it gets triggered for some reason. Might want to rethink that whole thing, put it lower down on the level at least, I don't know. The auto guns are activated and make quick work of the remaining attackers. The next day, both are still waiting on edge, and it looks like the coast is finally clear. She writes him another note, a sarcastic best birthday ever. In the aftermath, Levi gets to work putting all the systems back in order. There's a rumbling and a drone guy shoots up. Its appearance causes the gun to shut down. It then blasts off into the distance. Well, what was that about? He doesn't know either, offering a confused shrug. Along with December comes the cold and a perfect opportunity for some more homemade vodka. Again, they don't mind them having an unlimited supply of booze. That's no big deal, even though you'd think being alert at all times would be quite important here. Oh well. Their bond continues to go stronger as he assembles a crummy Christmas tree. She's overcome with emotion, twirling around in the fresh snow. From this point going forward, they are pretty much always up each other's ass. Are you even trying to do your job at all anymore? Things take a sudden silly turn when they participate in activities that reference some of the actors' big roles. First is some chess with Drossa, and is followed by an exceptionally goofy drum-off using pots and pans to make a kit. Seriously, this is all goofy as shit. I'm like, what is happening right now? I guess nothing of note happens for 2 months as we blast forward to February. Levi is awoken from another nightmare. Hoping for a connection, he places his hand on the window as though reaching out to his counterpart. Luckily, she happens to also be awake and returns the gesture. Yeah, they're falling hard. Later, it must be Valentine's Day, and Drossa mourns knowing that her father is most likely gone. She then crafts another note wishing that he could be here with her. Oh boy, really throwing those duties out the window, eh? It's for love! He concocts a ridiculous plan to utilize a rocket to propel a line clear across the gorge. Of course it works perfectly, and he triumphantly zips over to his new amour. They meet in person for the first time, and now that they start talking, things get a lot worse, including Anya's quite spotty accent. They engage in some odd flirting. She's made him a rabbit pie. He compliments her eyes, and she replies telling him that he stinks. So she sends him to wash up and plays a strange prank on him by taking his clothes. Okay. They next discuss the details of their most impressive shot, and they mention some impressive one from last year. He denies being involved, and we can tell they are smitten. Things turn even more romantically inclined, and you can really feel the love here. No, not really. It's painfully awkward and completely lifeless. Talk turns to what's down in the pit, and according to her dad, sometimes it's better not knowing. He disagrees. Hiding the truth is not the way. He learned this the first time he pulled the trigger, and has suffered from recurring nightmares ever since. It's apparently time for a nice slow dance, and luckily the variety of records available at the facility also includes a quite recent Yeah Yeah Yeahs record. You have got to be kidding me. It should have at least all been post-war music or something. She kicks things off with some bizarre gyrations and tells him to come along. He plays shy at first, and then they launch into a full-fledged choreographed dance number with twirls and dips in the whole 9 yards. And the next natural step, why, porkin', of course. They spend the night looking to the stars, and Drossa wants to know what what to do when sadness overwhelms you. Read a poem, he suggests. Yeah, that'll do it. I feel much better now. He spills that he writes poetry and even started working on one about her. So far, he's only willing to divulge her the title. She collapsed the night. She loves it, burying her head in his shoulder. Then in the morning, it's time for him to head back to his post. And luckily, nothing happened while his side was completely unmanned. Completely dropping the ball there. Before he zips over, she asks, did he like the pie? I fucking loved it, he smirks and takes his leave. Whee! Of course, now would be the worst time for something to go wrong. And what do you know? It does. Some hollowed homies are climbing up and hit a mine. The explosion cuts his line, sending him plummeting into the mist. Drasa quickly gears up and without hesitation jumps right in after him. Must have been some good porking. And now it's time for movie number 3 to start. I honestly thought they were gonna be in the towers the whole time. Nope. Drasa descends through a cloud of piss and right into a raging river. Her chute gets caught and she cuts herself loose flying down the waters. Meanwhile, Levi is hanging upside down in a tree. A weird giant caterpillar guy slithers up and growls. Okay, so we're doing Skull Island now? He unloads his gun into the creepy crawly and tumbles to the ground. The ground itself is out to get him too in this wacky place. He becomes entangled in a red mess of tendrils. A set of teeth emerge and start tightening around him. He doesn't even really try to get out very much, just kind of like, oh man. God, what a pickle I'm in. What? Dude. Before he can be consumed, Drasa shows up and saves the day. The piss mist gets thicker as they continue onwards in search of a way out. They come across a tree guy on a tree horse that knocks them on their asses. Naturally, the tree folk are no match for these two, and they dominate them without incident. Again, I'm like, whoa, hold on a second there. Anyone feel like we just totally walked into a completely different movie? Now we're like on an alien planet, weird plants and creatures and stuff kind of territory? A far cry from earlier, it's just weird. They get a major clue when checking the tree guy's bodies. They're all wearing different old service uniforms, different countries, but all dating to the post-war era. They realize these all must be from that last battalion that came down here back in the 40s. They've been stuck down here ever since and evolved into these weird tree guys, and somehow they were still alive for decades. They pass through a series of strange gnarled messes of plants and humans, with skeletons screaming out in horror from the gnarled branches. He brings up the T.S. Eliot poem, which is appropriately about people stuck between a world of life and death. It's called The Hollow Men. The Hollow Men, she asks? Yeah, I just said that. Were you listening, lady, or what? Jeez. As they trek onwards, they enter into downtown Silent Hill. I mean, not really, but it's, pretty similar. It's all buildings and stuff, obscured and fogged, overgrown with that same growth. Outside, flags are flying for the US, British, and Soviet Union, implying they were all in on this together. The shriek of something sends them to seek shelter in a church. We then dip our toes into some Resident Evil territory as a gaggle of skull spiders crawl down on the offense. Once they wipe them out, more of the hollow ones burst in. They certainly appear intending to kill them, slamming Drasa around and trying to impale her with its horns. More and more waves of spiders show up, and they make a quick exit by blowing out the back wall. They then happen upon the other side of the gorge wall and barricade themselves inside a bunker where all of the secrets will come to light. Now word from this week's sponsor, Z-Biotics. I gotta tell you about this game-changing product I use before a night out with drinks. It's called Pre-Alcohol. Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Honestly, I'd never used a product like this before and was genuinely curious to see how it works. I knew I was going for a bro's birthday party and also had to get up early the next day. So I took one pre-alcohol before the drinking, and to my surprise, I actually felt much better overall the next morning. It really works. Go to zbiotics.com/ending to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use ending at checkout. Z-Biotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/ending and use code ENDING at checkout for 15% off. Now word from this week's sponsor, Factor. Factor is the convenient and healthy way that makes eating easy. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared. Just pop it in the microwave for a few minutes and you're good to go. And it tastes great too. Plus they're dietitian approved. You can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor keto meals. And you never have to worry about running out of options, as they have 40 choices across 8 dietary preferences each week. I recently got to try some myself, and while all of them were good, my favorite had to be the herb crusted chicken. chicken with mashed cauliflower and toasted almond green beans. I just really like how easy they are to prepare, which is great when you've got a hectic schedule like me. It's not always easy to take time to eat healthy, and that's why Factor is perfect for me. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. They enter an old lab with beakers and the like all around and covered in cobwebs. There's also a photo of all three head politicians at the time, proving they definitely had a hand in the Gorge's creation. And that whole thing about the presidents not knowing was complete gobbledygook. I don't know. Levi discovers a dusty film reel labeled "God Forgive Us." Yeah, make sure to put a label on that. Wouldn't want to lose it. Would anyone really label something like that in the first place? It's a good thing they did, however, because it provides all the answers in a convenient exposition dump. A doctor lady comes on screen confirming this project is a secret coalition of nations east and west. They've been developing similar destructive bioweapons like Opie was at the time. The problem is an earthquake hit the area and messed up the facility, unleashing the toxin into the air. That's why they've been trying to contain it all these years. The toxin has literally merged with human, plant, and animal DNA, creating the odd hybrid creatures that we've seen populate the area. Although you might be okay if you're only exposed a little bit, and within 5 days mutations will appear. They show up physically, and she shows off an example on her own tummy. It's only thanks to this particular location they're in that the toxin hasn't already gotten out, and this is what has kept humanity from suffering the same fate as those down in the gorge. May God have mercy on our souls, she concludes. Well, there you go. Biochemical gone rogue is responsible for all the weirdness down in the gorge. But there's another wrinkle to the situation at hand. They find another more modern, well, relatively computer. Levi boots it up to a Dark Lake logo. He clicks through some files and knows now why they haven't bombed this place. Someone is still studying the toxin. Levi also gets now that they weren't in fact recruited by the military, but rather by a huge corporation specializing in genetic research. For what? Well, to use the toxin to create super soldiers, obviously. That makes total sense. They're actually here, in fact, to protect these secrets. All this was pretty out there, but also somehow still really obvious at the same time. Making it all about a big evil corporation is pretty stupid regardless. There's another file, Stray Dog, which JD mentioned, and see that it's an auto self-destruct protocol. If the cloakers go out, it's triggered and will destroy the gorge completely. Before continuing, they have another painfully unromantic interlude. He has something to tell her, in case they don't make it out of here. All this was worth it because he got to know her. They cradle their heads and then move on. Just a head cradle, not a kiss or anything. We might die. Touch your foreheads for a minute. Okay. On the way out, Drossa notices her ammo pack is gone, and they know it must be the Hollowed Ones responsible. They can think tactically, he grumbles, but why would she leave her pack out in the first place? Outside the place is thick with the toxin. Knowing that they can't see, they decide to level the playing field by tossing out smoke bombs. So now no one can see. Nah, these guys are real tacticians. She grabs a pack and a line is drawn tight, wrapping around her leg. A dude on a horse drags her through the forest and she cannot get free. She tries to shoot him to no avail, and another thick log knocks her right out. Levi is in hot pursuit of her now in some very red fog, red as hell here. He arrives at the missile facility and the source of the toxin, seeing it billowing into the air. Drossa! He yells down dramatically to the hole for some reason. We see the tree guy has taken her captive, although several bloody skeletons around indicates they do in fact eat people. He approaches her and digs the branch deeper into her side, making her wince awake. He licks the blood off a stick and tosses it in the fire. He then approaches aggressively, and she swings her legs, kicking him back, and launches herself off the hook. She goes for a piece of metal slash in his throat. She throws another, and the guy growls, really pissed now. He unleashes his sword upon her, and she fends him off with a burning log. She turns it upon his wooden skin, and a sudden shot from Levi takes care of the problem. Well, that was easy enough. I thought these guys were supposed to be super soldiers. Couple of bullets put them right down. And again, being made out of wood, they're highly flammable, so maybe we should just call it a day. Levi notices the tag name Bradford and figures out this is the very first Gorge operator that left the T.S. Eliot quote. I have to admit being confused by all this once more, because it was implied they have some kind of intelligence by taking the ammo bag. I was also like, why would he capture her if he's just going to eat her? I was really thinking in this scene he was going to start walking up to her and talking and be like, you don't understand our people, this is our home or something, but nope, just a standard monster dude pretty much. They navigate out of the silo, seeing the toxin leaking from the massive missile. There's also a monstrous mess of glowing living organisms branching out from the source. Crossing a bridge, they sidestep between the growing growths. She accidentally steps on a tendril and right into a glowy guy. Levi hacks his way through the stuff and sends it flying over the side, getting quickly reabsorbed into the mass. It then retaliates with a rocket tentacle that wraps tight around his leg. She utilizes another grenade, taking a huge chunk out and allowing them to escape. They then come to a warehouse full of completely mint Jeeps, just sitting here for decades, clean as a whistle, and functional too, of course. All it takes is a fresh battery from somewhere and a jump and they are on their way. They traverse the toxin-filled terrain and eventually find his broken line. They've made it back to the other side of the gorge. A gang of hollowed ones arrive on the scene and they keep them at bay. She gets the car in gear, now attached to a winch, and they start the perilous escalation up the side of the gorge. And it is seriously almost straight up, like 90 degrees. It is absolutely absurd. They clack up the rock for a spell with no incident until hearing another wave approaching. These guys can super climb now too, really making their way up that rope. Another lunges and sends Levi falling. He grabs on the end of the truck and punctures the propane tank, sending gas spilling out. He tosses a flare down, hitting one guy and quickly igniting the rope, taking out all the hollow boys. They stip the rest of the line, sending the Jeep down into the gorge. And you're like, well, that was it, right? They got out. The end. Time to pack it up. Well, nope, apparently not. They return to the tower and discuss what went down in the gorge. A waking nightmare, she calls it. And he feels that it was the closest to hell he would ever want to get. I would never want to get even anywhere near close to hell. Anyway, they know they need to quarantine to make sure they don't have any symptoms, which will take 6 days. They toast to making it out alive, and he asks, do you know why he got the job? Not because of his impossible shot, but because he was expendable. Yeah. He had nothing to live for, and now he has everything to live for. Are we done yet? As for the Gorge, they know what must be done. They gotta activate the self-destruct system. About to head back to his tower, he has something to say. I love you, he smirks and zips away. Once more, if the Gorge guys really wanted to get out, they had a pretty wide open opportunity there. Quite a long period with no protection in the Gorge whatsoever. Lucky for them, I guess. He then does his monthly check-in and tries to play like nothing's going on. But things are amiss when Bart takes over the call. She questions him directly. Did you go in the Gorge? He's all, no way, bro. Oh, and what about your Eastern counterpart? He's all, who's that? Never even saw him. What? There's a person over there? Bart has him in her grasp. If he didn't trip the sensor down in the Gorge, it must have been her. And thusly, she must be eliminated. He's all, yeah, okay, sure, yep, you got it, boss. It's no surprise that she's been messing with him and actually knows what's going on, as there must be cameras all over the joint. She now deems Levi compromised and orders his demise as well, by her own hands if necessary. Meaning you can finish your shift and get murdered, or if you don't follow the rules, you get murdered. Sounds fair? The pair then get to work putting their plan together, setting up a series of triggers. And she takes the time to write him another note. I love you too. Aww. Yeah, save it for later, lady. Bart arrives via copter to the Gorge, clearly labeled with Dark Lake, the same logo from the computer. She's behind everything. They scour his place, and there's no sign of him or his counterpart. Well then, raise the quadcopters, duh! A fleet of little machine drones are sent into action after them. They each get their respective turns, taking out the CG enemies, and they are no match as expected. Bart notices the quotes on the wall, and unearths a new one from Levi. Well, Buddha, technically. 3 things can't be long hidden. The sun, the moon, and the truth. Levi steadies for his big shot. It lands with a perfect kaboom. She follows suit with another, activating a series of triggers, taking out the entire fleet of cloakers. Bart knows now they've only got 2 minutes before Salty Dog is activated, rushing to the chopper. The missile is unclamped from its housing, and the duo keep hoofing it to a safe distance from the blast. And there's just no excitement to this whatsoever. You really think they're just gonna get blown away in the bomb or whatever? The bomb is dropped, eradicating the cursed Gorge. The chopper tries to outrun the fireball, but a blast gets them, sending them crashing into the rocks. Another cloud launches Levi over a waterfall into the pool below. Afterwards, Drassa waits for her quarantine period, and then heads to France to reunite with her beau. She waits for a while, and he doesn't show. So she opens a letter from him. It's the poem that he wrote for her, causing tears to stream down her face. Oh no, he didn't make it. Months later, he randomly shows up at the restaurant she works at now, and just has to make another note card. Don't you love this whole gimmick? I'll have the rabbit pie. What? What? Back together, they show off their complete lack of sizzling chemistry and share a kiss that is not believable at all. In the end, true love wins, not big evil companies. Haha, yes, just like real life. That'll do it for this Ending Explained for the Gorge. But don't forget, you can send me requests for any movies you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.